Hi, everyone. It's me. It's not just me. There's plenty of us. We're all in the waiting room. I'm going to get straight into this because we've got a lot of people we're introducing tonight. It's a bit of a different show. It's not a 606, but it's a little bit of a mixture of everything. But the first person I'm going to bring in is because I can see everyone below. You know Hannah, but I don't think Hannah had seen that intro video before until just now, judging by her reaction. I'd sent it to her. Hannah, have you never seen that before? It's good, isn't it?
It's different.
It is different, isn't it?
It's got personality, which
it's
what we're going for. So
yeah, it's got ADHD, Hannah. If we're being brutally honest,
I mean, exactly haven't we all?
We have. Yeah, I was bouncing off the walls. I think I'd had a Red Bull when that went out. But I mean,
because I have the less excitable ADHD. I probably looked at it and thought, "Oh, I'll watch that later," and then never did. So that makes sense as well.
Yeah, I think I ate Lego while I were watching it. It was just one of those things, Hannah. How are you doing? Welcome back.
I'm good, thanks. I'm excited to be back. There's not enough nonsense in League One, so I've adopted my local League Two team just as they've hit form. So I am the epitome of glory hunting. And it's all good. Going to City Salford next week. What? Like, don't get those kind of opportunities. We've got Selhurst Park on Sunday, so
I can't go to City Salford because unfortunately my daughter decided to be born on the 11th of January, which is just
planning. Quite honestly,
it was shit planning. It was the night after, the morning after we played Rochdale at home as well. Imagine how angry Liv was when I went to game. We had a C-section. She was dead angry. I was like, "What's going to happen? Doctor's going to turn up at house and cut you up at night before." Shut up.
Yeah.
Sorry, she's watching as well. Sorry, Liv.
Hi, missed you.
Right, I am. You can have her. Hannah, what have you missed most about League Two?
The nonsense. There's a little bit, because obviously we've got Crawley in League One, so there is some low-level nonsense, but it's not quite to the same scale as League Two.
Fair play. There is a lot of nonsense up there. You've got like rich nonsense.
Coming into a transfer window as well, that's like peak nonsense. So I'm very excited to be here.
Well, there's a few breaking news stories in the last couple of hours. But we're going to get some people in first. So Hannah, pick a number between 1 to 4.
3.
Good evening, Fifey. How are we doing, mate?
I'm not bad, thank you, guys. How are you?
Very good, mate. Very good. So anyone who doesn't know, Fifey, been on the 606, been on the podcast before, Swindon Town, host of Fools Rush In, joining us to argue about Swindon and how amazing they actually are and how the results are just, they're not true to the team and they are so much better than it makes out.
They're very true to the team and they're exactly how the team makes out.
Yeah. Well, we'll get on to yesterday's games very, very soon, Fifey, but do me a favour. 1, 2 or 4?
Let's go 1, please.
You are going to regret that. Good evening.
Yeah. How are we doing, ladies and gents? Are we all right?
Yeah, very well, mate. So Ben, another. Yeah, I mean, do you know what? He doesn't even need an introduction. If you've not listened to the 606, he's been on your club's podcast at some stage, because he's everywhere. Ben will tell us that Swindon's results are not true to the club, and they should be so much higher. And that's why we got both Fifey and Ben, because I get to see. When I go on Fools, I get to see the arguments, and I thought I want some of that myself. So this is going to be great. Are you excited, Ben?
Oh, I just don't know. It's an honour and a privilege to be on such a prestigious podcast as Lower League Look, and part of that Lower League Look family.
So how is it you can say proper words on this, but you can't say words on ours?
Because we go to Swindon. I've dumb it down a little bit.
You don't drink before this, do you?
not on week 1. But
I'm on proper behaviour today. I'm going to be like I've even got a cola. I've not even got beer or anything. Like, I'm proper psyched to be here. It's really good. I know, but it's my debut today, so I've got to be on best behaviour. But going back to what Ian said, look, I'm sorry to disappoint everyone. We deserve to exactly be where we've been for the majority of the season. It has been absolute tripe. So, it's
quick
been.
Question, Ben.
But
is this your debut?
This is my debut on Lower League Look.
Have you never been on it?
No. I've been on like 606, and I've done actual little phones, but I've never actually properly been like a fully fledged member of lower league. This is actually, this is me being on first time properly, to my knowledge.
Welcome. Pfeiffer, you've been on before, haven't you?
Yeah, I've been lucky enough that whenever Hannah, Grant, and just about everyone else in your phone book can't make it, I get a message to say, can I have some company? And you know full well that I'm definitely sat at home doing nothing. So I'm like,
Yeah, sometimes you come when I can't be here, you offer to come.
Yeah. I've offered to host 606s before, if you give me like an hour's notice.
Yeah, we're back now, and 606s will be coming back from. This is not replacing them. This is just we knew people would pay attention at this time on a Sunday.
I hate to take over show one, but I just seen that John's in the chat, and he's had his little baby girl today.
Yes, little Esme.
Congratulations, John.
Congrats, John.
John,
I didn't even know you're pregnant.
I know, mate. It's like what modern science does these days. You didn't know his name was Julie.
Honestly, the day he told me that his partner was pregnant, you wanted to hear this nonsense he was coming out with about his age and all sorts.
My balls work. Right, Ben, pick a number. 2 or 4?
2.
We've got Bailey joining us to talk Doncaster Rovers after their incredible result against Port Vale yesterday. Bailey, how are you doing, mate?
Good evening, everyone. How are we?
Good, thanks.
Cracking. Welcome, regular 606 contributor. Yeah, it's contributor. I didn't know if that was the right word. First time on the podcast itself, so welcome. It's nice, isn't it? It's cosy.
Yeah, it's better than it was yesterday at 3 o'clock at Keatmount Stadium.
We'll get on to that as well very, very soon. So I'm not going to ask you to pick a number because there's one number left. And last but not least, good evening, Ronan. How are we doing, mate?
Best to last and all that. Even all. Are we all right?
Barrow at the end.
Well,
that's what it is.
Well,
not in the league.
The joke to be made there.
Well, welcome everyone. So for anyone who's watching, listening, whatever you're doing, this is the team, not the full team. We've got a couple more. We've got 2 more. Yeah, 2 more that can't make it tonight. We'll be bringing them in as and when they can make it. So, let's. Do you know what? I was going to go into matches before we start, and I was going to start talking about who done what yesterday. But Brad Gallinson, a friend of the show, he was scrolling Twitter earlier, and he saw that we were back tonight, and he said, "Do you know what? I'm going to give him something to talk about." So they sacked the manager. And then they brought John Coleman in. Gillingham have sacked another manager. That is 3 in 2 years now. Sacked.
Yeah.
Go through.
It does sound familiar. Yeah, Fife is dreaming of those numbers. Those are low. Those are rookie numbers, aren't they, Fife?
3 in 2 years.
Yeah.
Rubbish.
What? Being brutally honest, so currently Gillingham sit 14th. They're on 30 points. They've got 2 games in hand on most teams above them, or at least a game. What do you think Gillingham expected this summer? Or this season based on the summer? What did you think they expected?
I think Gillingham will always, they'll consider themselves another one of those big sides in the league. So they'll always be looking top 3, 4, definitely playoffs. And like you say, they do still have 2 games in hand. And points on the board is the important thing, but there's every chance they could win those. Yeah. And the picture looks different. But it doesn't necessarily surprise me that they've done it. I think it more surprised me that they've done it now. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm an advocate of, you don't tend to sack someone in the January window. If you're going to do it in December or even November so that they've got time to assess the squad. Yeah. You do it in January, it's just going to completely derail any transfer plans you've got.
With them having John Coleman kind of announced an hour later, do you think that Coleman knew before the window? Do you think he's been kind of prepped for coming in and done his work? Because when we used to speak to Dave Artell before he got the Grimsby job, he'd always prepare for any job that he was potentially going to look at well in advance. Same with Pete Wild. We saw. I mean, you were at what game were you at? You were at Stockport and.
He's been at Edgeley Park a few times, and then I've always looked to see who both teams whichever team we're playing has got coming up, because he does exactly the same. like goes. And obviously it wasn't with Fleetwood, but yeah, I always thought like, oh, okay, so
yeah, and I think
it was Peterborough, I think the last one he went to, but yeah,
it was that's when you text me. So managers do like to kind of go ahead and prep for, if I get this job, I'm gonna be looking at, you know, these players and blah 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 blah. And do you think that'll be true with Coleman? Do you think Coleman will have known? Because it's out of the blue. It's completely out of the blue. Is Coleman for me? It doesn't make a lot of sense.
I think it depends on if Gillingham are what you consider a well-run club or not. I mean, if you take our example of, you know, our manager got relieved of his duties, and then 20 minutes later, Ian Holloway was appointed for no reason whatsoever. But he also said himself that he didn't know about it until a couple of hours before, and it just kind of happened. So I would like to think Gillingham were probably better run than that. But then I also think that's quite disrespectful to the man in charge. That I always have an issue when people are. It's not tapping up because he was unemployed, but you know what I mean? Talking to other people. It's like, have the conversation with your manager. Say that you don't feel it's working so that he's got time to prep as well. And then go.
The irony is as well is that when Gillingham appointed Clements, it took ages. And Brad Galinson made a point of saying that it was really important that they get the right person in. And, you know, they were taking their time with it because it had to be, you know, a good culture fit. And I can't remember how long it was between Clements and Bonner, but that kind of struck me, the immediacy of the announcement. I think it's good if you're a Gills fan, you're not sitting there thinking, you know, who are we going to get in this time? John Coleman's been, I'd like to say out of work, but, you know, he'll have been spending his time he will know who his targets are. And, you know, I think the difference as well is that you're not going to have someone 3 weeks down the line. I think I was reading something earlier on that said, you know, this might have been planned. Obviously, their game was postponed today. They were supposed to be playing Chesterfield, and it's timely in that they've kind of had to make the call because he has to take ownership of the incoming transfers in January.
Ronan, for you, obviously, you guys currently are dealing with the last manager. Do you? I kind of looked at some comments from Gills fans earlier saying that maybe this, and we had this conversation in the group as well, maybe it's not necessarily a manager problem at the club. It's owners coming in, and Fifey alluded to it there. Are they a well-run club? We don't know. Being brutally honest, look, Brad Galinson, nothing against the guy at all. And every time I've spoken to him, really, really nice guy. But nothing's gone right on the pitch yet. Nothing at all has gone right on the pitch since he came in. So right now, on the pitch isn't being run well. And there's got to be something that kind of connects those dots. There's got to be one thing that's the constant between them, because obviously Harris was there. We don't know why Harris left. There's rumours. No one, I think, will ever really know. Harris left. Clements came in. Clements left. Bonner came in. Bonner's left. We're obviously seeing Clements ain't doing too well at Barrow, but we hear things behind the scenes with Barrow as well about people above the manager trying to make football decisions, influencing football decisions. Mm-hmm. And I'm dead against it. And I said it earlier in the chat, and you can all jump at me if you disagree, but I don't think that there's any justification for any League Two club to have a director of football. I don't think it's needed, because we don't have academies, really. There's very few that have academies. We don't really have reserve squads. So when you say director of football, there's only one team. So what are they directing? They're directing that one team, but you've got a manager that's supposed to do that. What do you... Ron, go on, Hannah, go on.
No, I was just going to say, I think the issue as well is that there is no clearly defined role of director of football. Seems to be a convenient home for someone that they maybe want to get in and they don't have a role for. It means something different at every club.
Absolutely. We don't call ours a director of football, but he is. It's the exact same role. What about for you, Ron? What you're seeing, Clements, obviously, after what he did at Gillingham, you're seeing it now on your side. What do you think? Do you think it's a Clements issue? Do you think he's a poor manager, or do you think that there's other factors that need to be taken into consideration by fans?
I think there's a little bit of everything. I mean, touching slightly in the director of football role, when we came into the Football League 5 years ago now, we were crying out for someone who sort of had a little bit of football now, so who could sort of sit in the middle of the, that position between the board of directors and the manager at the time, just because when we were going to make footballing decisions that, whenever left at the start of when we became the Football League, and this isn't by no means to be disrespectful, we didn't really have anyone who knew anything about football at the football club. They've all got their own expertise in their own businesses, and that's their thing. We had a gentleman who arguably had a little bit of nous, but I'd argue completely against that. So I can understand why football clubs put these people in charge, and I still think if you get the right person and create that level of collaboration, they can be brought in and they can do well. In our circumstance, we've appointed a gentleman who used to be a football agent as a director of football. Now, people would argue that's not a bad thing, but because his contact list is extensive, he's got relationships and all that sort of good stuff. But when you look at it and sort of dive into it a little bit deeper, he'll have people that he's got to keep on side. He'll have relationships and contacts that he'll have to keep, working alongside at the same time. He'll have his own interests. And I'm not knocking Ian Wood by any stretch of imagination, because we have signed some really good players under his stewardship. And we have made some good footballing decisions, Pete Wild being one of them, who was a complete Ian Wood decision. We were literally on the cusp of getting Phil Brown in charge, decided by our owners. Ian Wood stepped in and went, no, we need Pete Wild. We need someone who's, not Phil Brown. And thank Christ for that every single day of the week, because I wouldn't be sat on this show talking about League Two football. You know what I mean?
I wish you had gone down. We needed hosts for National League look last season.
Well, so there's that sort of catch-22, but this summer has been, and I won't dive into Barrow too much, but I can give it a bit of an example of the question, it's been a catastrophe. We had no direction from day one. We were left in the lurch. We knew Pete Wild was sacked 3 weeks before he'd gone. Sacked to lose his term, because it depends who you believe. I have my own opinion on it, which he was probably sacked because he didn't want to do X, Y, Z that he was told to do. But I think there's also a middle ground in between there with Pete Wild, and let's not pretend what didn't happen last season. We bottled the biggest position we could have been in. And there's a truth between the two. I probably side 60-40 in favour of Pete Wild. But I think they are good things for football clubs who need that little bit of help and a little bit of a push in the right direction sometimes. But you've got to be really careful, because what we've done now is now made our director of football CEO. We've now made him a director on our actual football board, and that's dangerous, because if Ian Wood's making these decisions and it starts going wrong and we get another manager wrong and another window wrong, then what happens then?
Yeah.
What do you do then? How much is it going to cost you then? And I think that's where you've got to be really, really careful. And I think we're just teetering on the edge of giving one gentleman too much power, which is exactly probably what you'd argue a director of football's coming against. He's trying to devolve the power into different parties, really. So I'm not massively sold on giving them infinite power, but I think they are a good thing when used well.
Fair play. I suppose the question to kind of look at with everything is, how much accountability should a director of football have if they're going to bring one in, if a club's going to have one? And I've had a message from someone saying that I'm wrong about the director of football thing, which is fine, always going to happen. And that directors of football, the areas that they deal with are critical, and I do appreciate that. But the areas aside from the on the pitch stuff, like this, I'm talking more about the directors of football. You guys had it at Swindon, where people above the manager were dictating who's involved in the squad. We've had it at Bradford, where managers have been told they can't play this player because if they play this player, it triggers a clause in a contract. And that's the sort of thing. It's like, well, hang on, why did you sign that contract? If you've signed that contract and you've given me this player to play with, I should be able to do that. I need to be able to use these players. And then the club ends up, because then you end up in a position where the manager has to do what he's told, does what he's told, it goes wrong, and the manager's then out of a job. And that's what keeps happening. And look, so, Mark said here, the Gallinsons have transformed the club off the pitch. Don't disagree. Do not disagree at all. I think the atmosphere around your club in, was it 2 Januaries ago when they took over?
It was 21, 22, wasn't it? It was a December. Not
they were
the season.
bottom, weren't they? Or they were like second
was it
bottom.
the one where they came down wheels, wasn't it? So it'd have been, 21, 22.
Yeah.
So they were down there, but it was that time where I think they'd scored like 8 goals or something in the first 3 months of the season. They were down there. So what they've done off the pitch, the atmosphere, everything about the club has just kind of skyrocketed. But they've not got this right yet. But even the off the field stuff has chopped and changed quite a lot. So they've got rid of I believe it was Kenny Jackett that came in for
Kenny
a while.
Jackett's recruitment,
Yeah, I think he left, didn't he? He ended up leaving
fairly recently, though, I think.
Yeah, so it's like, at what point do we? Who's held accountable for these? Because, like Ronan says, if you get to this point where you keep making these changes, you keep making these decisions, then eventually someone's going to start looking and going, "Well, hang on, what's the common denominator here? You know, we're doing it at our club at the minute. I think we're on 8 managers in 6-7 years at Bradford, which is." You know, that's a huge turnover for a club that really should, with the fan base and the money that we get from that, we should be able to put together a squad that can be where we at least need to be. But we're not, and we keep sacking managers. And at some point, and the fans are doing it now, we now look at who's to blame. Ryan Sparks is the one who's the common denominator for the entire thing. On what Ronan said there. The Pete Wild thing, obviously, there's rumours. We don't know the definites, but you guys have definitely taken a budget cut this year in terms of playing staff. You've reduced your budgets. I think you went kind of balls to the wall last season with his budget. If you guys sacked Clemence, the payoffs that you would have to give out for him would probably have just been easier to keep Pete Wild on and keep the budgets as they were and continue to build. How much time do you think Clemence has got for Barrow?
My personal opinion, or the difference is, my personal opinion is completely different to what the actual fact is. He's been given January, and that's fact. Unless we lose like football's never changing thing and all that good stuff. I think if he doesn't win on Saturday, he's got to go. I don't care that we're playing Port Vale. I don't care that the second, third in the league, whatever they are. This isn't boiling down to one game of the fact that, you know, we're at Port Vale. I'd sacked him last night. That's just my opinion. I get the point that there's pressures above him, and we're being directed to play a certain style of football. However, it isn't just that. There is no direction at all. You can't. Yeah, I haven't watched us since September and thought once, you know, I can see what we're trying to do here. I can see what we're trying to, you know, the patterns of play and all that sort of good stuff. If you buy into that, we look devoid of ideas. We look devoid of any form of confidence. My largest concern is these are the same players largely under a different manager who've let us down again. So it's not necessarily if Clemence goes, and this is me, you know, I'm being very vocal on the fact that I think Clemence should go. I don't think it's solely down to him. These players are the same ones that in January last year, up until April, whatever, let us down, you know, and I'm not going to call players out, whatever, but so we've got to be really careful here. If we get dragged into a relegation fight, and I think we're on the edge, I don't think we're quite there yet. If these players couldn't pull themselves over the line to get to, you know, a playoff, then are they going to pull themselves out of shit to get out of a relegation scrap? I'd argue no, and that's what terrifies the life out of me, because we've had worse teams under Barrow fighting relegation scraps and have stayed up, you know, touch wood so far in most of my lifetime. But they all had fighters and scrappers and people who take the game by the scruff of the neck, whether that be Scott Quigley, you know, when we were first in the Football League, you know, different Paul Jones when we were in, you know, the National League. We had these characters and players, and what I don't see on our pitch now is we have them players. You know, we could argue Paul Farman is, and embarrassingly, me and him were arguing during the game yesterday, which is not good at all. We, you know, it's never good.
I like Farms, don't do that.
But I loved that because he argued back, he cared, he showed that he wanted to.
Yeah.
I loved that. I showed that he turned around and actually showed some bollocks and went, "Yeah, I don't agree with you." And I said, my point wasn't directed at him. My point's directed at everyone in front of you. We've been shit for weeks, you know what I mean? And he sort of took some accountability and ownership, and you know, it was agreed to disagree in the end. But there's not enough of that. There's not enough of that. And my biggest pet peeve at the end yesterday for us was we lost a game of football, and there wasn't a lot of people, but a few people stayed behind, and they were angry, and I think they're just to be angry because we've been awful. Every single player walked down the tunnel, and we're not even in a relegation scrap yet. If you can't handle 100 folk, 50 folk, whatever it is on the terraces, shouting at you, if we're really in the shit, you're not gonna like what's gonna come. Because I've watched some good meltdowns, and you all have with your own football clubs. That wasn't even in the top 50 meltdowns. Like it wasn't even close. You know what I mean? So if you think it's gonna be shit now, wait and see what happens. But I think Clemence is just. I don't think he's. I think
he's on borrowed time.
He's probably a fantastic coach, and he has been because his career says that, and the level he's worked at with the managers he's worked at. Of course, he's a fantastic coach. I don't think he's a good football manager, and I don't think that's been harsh or horrible. I just don't think everybody who's a good coach is a good football manager. And
it's a really good point as well about, to what degree can you lay the blame on the players? Because the same thing at Gillingham, they're saying where it was the players have driven out another manager, and the difference with Coleman is, given his age and his experience and all the time he was at Accrington, he might be able to kind of keep them in line a little bit more. But, we've seen Carlisle, and talking to Ben about Swindon the other day, it's very difficult to recruit your way out of a terrible position because some players don't transfer well. They can be brilliant on paper. They just don't, something just doesn't fit. It'd be interesting to see how that kind of cultural dynamic changes as well.
I think Carlisle's a fantastic point when you go on about it, and to move off Barrow completely. If you want to go into them, then I really don't see how they get out of this. I think Williams has got to sign a lot of his own players, and I think the largest problem has been that Paul Simpson left him a team full of players that can't play that style of football that he wants to play. And I think Carlisle fans haven't seen that, and I think they've been a bit blindsided to it because of, we see a lot, me personally, I see a lot of the coverage that comes along with our county and whatever, and certain individuals are now changing their opinion because it's not the mate in charge anymore. I really, really, and I say worry, but I don't, because I hope they get relegated for Carlisle, because I think there's only one way, and it's directly into the trapdoor. I think if they think they've hit rock bottom's got a long way to come yet.
Yeah. Bailey, just on what he said there, that's similar to what you had when you got rid of McSheffrey and brought Schofield in. Two different managers that play two different styles. McSheffrey had built a squad to play his way, and then you gave Danny Schofield the keys to the castle and expected him to get you out of the shit, or not even just get you out of the shit, kind of push you on. And he was never given a window. He was never given. I think he had the January, didn't he? But I think did you sign one player?
He had the January, but we couldn't. We had the embargo thing where we couldn't spend any money,
which they kept quiet, didn't they? As well, they kept quiet.
I think it was Caelan Laveren were only one on per permanent.
From Scunny, wasn't it? Yeah, he came in just after Scunny's owner came. Like you guys had the same issue, and it keeps happening. We had it with Mark Hughes. Mark Hughes tried to play football on the floor, out from the back, and it was nice to watch. It wasn't always effective, but it was nice to watch. We got rid of him, and then we brought Alexander in, and Alexander plays a long ball style of football, and it's taken us a while to get players that are right for that. Weirdly, when Andy Cook's injured, he doesn't play a long ball, and no one can really understand why. And we've kind of got this divide now amongst our fan base where people are saying, without Andy Cook, we play better football. And it's like they're blaming Cook, but it's not. For some reason, we put Cook up top and we launch the ball forward to him.
But that's probably, I think, you could say it's played to your player's strengths, but then they look at Andy Cook and say, he's league top scorer, he's one of the best strikers in the league, just get it to him.
We scored 31. He scored 31 goals in the season under Mark Hughes when we played it on the floor. And so that's his best ever season.
That's possibly similar to us at minute with Molyneux. He's not on it, but we always look to him first because he's our key player, as you want, if you want to kind of say that, and is the one you think might make something happen.
Yeah, he'll pull something out of nothing. Well, look, what I'm going to do, we're going to move on to the matches. But Hannah, we do something we've never done before. Are you ready for this?
I'm not sure.
We've got a cut scene to get us into the bits to talk about matches. We don't. This is. I know professionally and professionals a thing, but we're going a little bit bigger than normal. So we'll see you in a second. So go back.
So for anyone listening to that, the noise that was
no, don't tell him. Don't tell him. Don't tell him, Hannah. Don't tell him. If anyone's listening, it was Hannah just going.
Thing.
That's the thing. It's all visual. Is this? It's trying to force them to come over and see us. Hannah got dressed for tonight, guys. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Music, Hannah got dressed for tonight. Maybe if you hadn't, they'd be here, Hannah. That's something to consider for the future. Same with you, Fife. Same for you, Fife. You could have come naked.
I'll bear it in mind.
So let's talk
that for special interviews.
Specials, yeah. Hannah, that's just for mine, yours, and Dave Artell's eyes. Let's talk matches. Let's talk about what went on yesterday. So I'm going to work backwards here from where we just did that. I'm going to come at you, Bailey.
Do we have to?
Right, yeah, we do, because I don't think you're in as bad of an issue, bad of a problem as a lot of fans are making out, but you are not where you should be. Really not.
No, yeah, I agree. I think a lot of people are overreacting to performances haven't been great, and I think it's like 3 wins in 11 or something along them lines.
Mm-hmm.
And we're getting a lot of draws, which are a lot of people are saying papering over cracks. But I think you look at the table, and apart from Walsall, every other team is inconsistent.
Yeah.
Apart from bottom 2 or 3 or whatever.
Yeah, they're very consistent down there.
But everyone's inconsistent. The league's probably 7th to 8th and 9th is constantly changing. If one team goes on a run, and we've shown we can do it last season, one team goes on a run, they could easily get up towards Walsall and compete with them and get away from the rest of the chasing pack. But I think January is big. I don't think we'll make too many more signings. Rob Street came in Friday and looked very good yesterday. And I think there'll be a couple of more if we can get, like last January where we brought in 3 or 4 and they were all very good. Mm-hmm. If we can bring in similar quality, I think we'll be all right still. I think we'll still be top 3. But it probably does need to change for the better as inconsistency-wise.
So for you, and it's a question we spoke about before we came on, but I want to ask it in front of you, and I want to ask it in front of people, and if there's any Donny fans listening. This came from Chal. So Chal messaged me earlier, and he asked me the question, and it's actually a really, really good question. If you don't go up this season, what of Grant McCann? Because for anyone who doesn't know, at the end of last season, McCann gave a big speech after the season. Was it after the last game?
Yeah, after the playoff against Crewe, yeah.
Yeah, the second leg against Crewe. And he basically said, anyone who doesn't want to be here and get promoted next season needs to leave. Anyone who's not ready to get promoted needs to not be here. Now, that to me says he's signed a team of players that are ready to get promoted. So if you don't get promoted, that falls on his shoulders. What happens there? What do you think Grant McCann's mind will be saying to himself about that whole situation if you don't go up this season?
I think it's a tough one because, like I was on about earlier, McCann, when he first came in, he didn't need to come to us. He could have easily got a lot of League One jobs and possibly a couple of Championship if they really wanted him. But he came down to us because he said he had unfinished business. It didn't start so well last season, but we went on that amazing run. And then I think that amazing run that we had kind of set McCann thinking to say, right, we've just got playoffs. Now we should be going for the title. And like you say, he set his stall out very early on to say if players don't think we can win league, they can go.
Mm-hmm.
And you're looking at it now, like Walsall are running away with it, but there's other teams that have got the ability in the whole squad to push Walsall. But I think it's a tough one. If we don't get promoted this season, I could see a world where he walks. Like I said earlier, he doesn't get sacked. We don't sack him because I think all the fans love him, and there's a couple of murmuring saying he's on thin ice, but I just can't see that being the case at all. I think the board have fully backed him. Like we've seen a couple of players get injured early on in the season, and they've just gone straight out and said, "Here you go, have these 2 players." We brought in Brendan Fleming and Josh Emanuel, just brought in 2 players, have these as well. So we've now got 3 right backs and 3 left backs, which shows how big and good the squad depth is. But we're just not showing it at the minute, like consistency wise. But then again, neither is any other team. The whole league is inconsistent at the minute.
Harry's made a very good point here. If you don't go up, don't sack him. Look at what we did with Clough and stick with him. Sacking the manager starts another 3-year project. I agree on that.
I think it's the same with Barrow as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's the same with Barrow. I think
they're very early into their 3-year project, though.
As long as they don't go down, I think you've just got to get through this season. Like I said to Ron earlier, get through this season and just keep building on it.
Salford are another good example as well. Salford are a good example. They brought Carl Robinson in, and they've also taken their. I know that's very offensive. I can't say that. They've kind of taken a step back from above and let him get on with the job. And that's something that Salford, I think, have had to learn because they've never done that. If you watch the documentary, they've always been so hands-on of the owners and the CEO and stuff. But they've kind of let him do it. And now we're kind of seeing it. I said earlier, I think Salford have got a Crawley squad from last season. It's not one that you'd look at that you'd go, wow, that's an amazing squad. But it's so fucking difficult to break down.
Yeah, and then, but you've got Cole Stockton, you've got I don't know how we're saying it this month, but either Adelakan or Adelakan.
Hannah, you've got to remember that Donny fans changed his name to suit a chant.
I think it's Adelakan. That sounds wrong as well. Anyway, he's hit between at full fitness. Him and Cole Stockton are kind of responsible for the goals, but they need either a 25 goal scorer. And yeah, Jake's right. Ryan Giggs, that's the difference recently. Ryan Giggs in the dugout in that director of football role. I think that's his official title.
But that's not a bad thing, Hannah. That what Jake said there. He said we have an owner in the dugout. Ryan Giggs, Gary Neville, Phil Neville, Nicky Butt, Paul Scholes, they all have an incredible wealth of knowledge that should be used, but the manager should be the one that makes that decision. I've seen the clips of the documentary, like I say, where the owners are stood at the side of the training pitch, judging how the manager is training, and it's like that's pressure that shouldn't be. Not always there. You've got an owner in the dugout, but oh no, I can't say that either. I know I'm trying to be really better in myself and say not say really offensive things because we're not. We're live and we can't put it out.
And Carl Robinson as well. You get that passion, like he does. He was talking about MK Don's comment about like one of the CEOs had said to him, "Oh, well, you can't come to our ground and play like you did at your kind of little implied tin pot ground." And he does, he got sent off in his first game. He's passionate and he gets in there. And I think that's the difference as well. But it's something that's grown over. Well, since he came in, really, it's definitely not been quick. And, to Harry's point about it being project, same with Dave Artell, that's not been smooth, but it's starting to get traction. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I guess you've got at the top of the league, Walsall on, I think, seven wins in a row and Salford with 6. And that's where that gap will start to erode. I think before Salford played Morecambe, they were 9th. So they've gone from 9th to, they're 3rd now, but this morning
second.
In the space of a week. And it's similar to how the league was last season, slightly earlier on. All it took was a couple of wins and you'd go from like lower mid-table obscurity to the playoffs. So it's too early for anyone to kind of lose hope, I think, because there is so much. It's so tight.
Yeah, no, it is. And do you know what Harry said here? Owners shouldn't be in the dugout, full stop. Stevenage had an owner in the dugout. No, sorry. Crawley had an owner in the dugout at Stevenage away, and they
yeah, I mean that's not something to hold up as being best practice, is it? Really?
My favourite part about all that is that someone shared it the other day. It was like the 2-year anniversary. He wasn't just in the dugout.
He was on his phone.
He was while the players were warming up. He's walking around the pitch. He's like walking around the pitch in his crawler jacket, shaking players' hands and stuff, and they're all trying to play football. Ben Fifey, from one end of the scale of management to a team that's kind of done it, got rid of the problem and brought in someone else who is batshit crazy, but just might have enough about him to get you over the line. Where are you guys currently? And we'll talk yesterday's game. Let's do it. Well, I'll come to Fifey first because Fifey, I know. Well, the sit back in the chair says it all. Fifey, what went on in that game?
Just simply not good enough in any department on the pitch. I don't necessarily think that's... I've been very critical of late for some of the things that were mentioned earlier. You know, I've said that I don't see us having a style of play, an identity and all those fancy buzzwords. But I just think Notts County are simply that much better than us. McGoldrick obviously played very, very well, as he always does, against us. But yeah, we just weren't able to compete in any department. We desperately need a goalkeeper because both our goalkeepers are absolutely honkingly bad.
Yeah.
We put the best striker in the league against an inexperienced defender just because he's played well or perceived to play well for a couple of games. We went in without a combative midfield. We've only got two of those. It was described earlier of those sort of fighters or whatever the term was, and we have two of those. None of them played. Offerball and Clark were both on the bench, and we went with our mobile front three in the absence of Smith, and they didn't move for 90 minutes. And sadly, I do, to an extent, blame Holloway for that performance because, if nothing else, I've said before, fans should expect a certain level of fight, desire, pride from the players. And Holloway, the great man manager that he is, clearly isn't installing that into them. But again, I also think Notts County are just that much better than us. They are, and it shouldn't be that way. In a league, yes, there will be better teams than others. But I always believe any league game, you should go in thinking you can win it because you should be of a level.
There's a basic standard.
Yeah, and we are not that basic standard. And the thing is, what I do hope, because obviously no one likes to see their team lose. We've got used to it. I hope it's the reality, like the kick in the whatevers that people need. I've been crucified in our WhatsApp chat, Ben will tell you, for being very, very negative about the Christmas games. Everyone's like 5 points in the last 3 games, absolutely stellar stuff. Holloway's really getting a tune out of them. And I'm like, no, he isn't. And there's if you look at the games over Christmas, for me personally, Wimbledon, we threw 3 points away. Bromley, we didn't even try and get 3 points. Colchester,
no, you didn't.
Colchester had more than an element of luck about it. And Notts County had all the same problems in the 3 previous games, but we actually had a team play us who are happy to play us. And when a team plays football against us, that's what's going to happen because we're just not good enough.
What about the Grimsby game? Because I think that's an important one. I was there for half of it because I left at half time. But that first half of that game, you were brilliant. I had Ben fucking 5 rows in front of me, kept turning around and waving every time they scored. I went there fully expecting a Grimsby demolition.
Which would have been better politically in lots of ways.
Yes, on the day, that probably would have done more for the club long run than the win. But what about that game? Was that an anomaly? Do you think? Was it a case of 1 step forward, 2 steps back?
If you look at our run, we are absolutely terrible. Smash Newport. Absolutely terrible. Do okay against Cheltenham. Absolutely terrible. Smash Grimsby. So it does happen. We do have it in us to turn up one in every 8 games. But one in every
we have won 3 home games on the spin and scored 3 goals in each of them. And include that, we've missed penalties in the 2 of the, like the Grimsby and the Fleetwood game, and hit the woodwork numerous times on each of those wins. I think the home form's been pretty good, to be fair. I think we've just each and every game we've played, we've deserved the points we've got. We deserve to lose at Bradford. We deserve to get hammered at Notts County. That was deserved. We deserve points at Bromley, and we deserve a point at Wimbledon. We could have got more because we had the opportunities to, but we could have lost both games. You had to come from behind against Bromley. And the home games, we were the better team. I don't know, Colchester had a good half hour, but we were the better team, and we created more.
I agree, and this is what we've discussed. Like, the way I look at it, and I asked Ben kind of 3 questions when me and him were particularly going at it the other day. I said, which won't surprise you at all, Liam. And I said, has form improved? Points-wise, yes. You can't deny it has, because we've actually picked some up. Performance-wise, in my opinion, no. Like I said, I still don't think we have a style and identity. I think for a lot of time we're lacking all those fundamentals. But other people see it differently, and that's why we love football. Because, you know, like I say, I've been massacred in our WhatsApp chat of late for being so negative despite getting some results. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to say I told you so, but Notts County was exactly the same as the 3 games that we mentioned before that. The difference is Notts County actually came to play.
And that's an important point there. And this is a question for you both here. Do you think that it's a case of these games where you've picked up points or where your form's kind of picked up? Do you think that's because of you guys, or do you think that's because of the inconsistencies of the rest of the league?
Both.
Yeah, I think it's both. We played each 4 of the teams when they were in terrific form. Apart from Grimsby, after we beat them, his form's fall out their arse and they're losing every week now. Colchester had gone 11 games off on the spin without defeat, lose to us, and now they just got lost 2-0 to Accrington, and they'll probably spin off now as well. Bromley were doing great until until yesterday, or till today, they got smashed, and Wimbledon are doing quite well. I think we're for a team who are bottom, struggling for relegation. I think performances have been okay. They've not been at a standard we expect as a Swindon fan. That's way off. We shouldn't be celebrating winning, you know, an indifferent Christmas or an indifferent 6 months. And it isn't indifferent because results and performances have been like that. We should be doing better, but it is better than we were before, where it was just abject misery.
I disagree there, Ben. I think indifferent's the wrong term. Indifferent for me says it's been meh. It's been you've been just as good as you have shit. That would put you mid-table. I don't think in
that short period. In the short period, in the last 5 weeks, we've won 3, drawn 2, lost 2. That's indifferent, and that's what I mean by indifferent.
Oh, you said 6 months. That's why.
I didn't mean like 6. Did I say 6 weeks? Sorry, 6 months. Right, we've been bollocks. It's I think off the ball. I think Five said this the other day. We have been working a little bit better.
We have better off the ball than on it.
Yeah, no, we've been working a little bit better off the ball. The only good thing you can say about the other day is at 2-0, we thought we'd cave in. It'll be 6 or 7, and we were dogged in the way we defended. But that was about it. That's all you can say really about that performance. Is we didn't completely cave in. But that's all you got really from that. But I think we did have injuries to certain players. He has been rotating because you can't play Clark all the time. Smith's got a broken nose, not trained all week, was going to wear a mask, but because he hasn't trained with it, he thought we didn't play him. And Smith is a huge difference. Against the Bromley game, we didn't look like scoring until Smith came on. He is everything going forward for us at the minute. There's something we need addressing in January, is some support for him. So Glatzel has just been dreadful. He's not the player that he was last season. I think it's time to let him go. Ollie Clark, Harry.
How's Ollie Clark getting on?
I would know. I've been highly critical of Ollie Clark up until the last 5-6 weeks. I think that he's actually rapidly becoming quite a favourite with the fans, because when he's doing the business and he does get stuck in, and he is that combative midfielder, he's been scoring goals. He's been creating goals, and he does the dirty work as well. When he's on the pitch, he's been great. But apart from this, he can't play game after game after game. He plays 60 minutes, has to get sub off, misses the next week, comes back and plays 60 minutes, has to sub off. Because that's and stuck to keep out like that. It's a shame because
he is a big reason why we've looked better off the ball of late.
Yeah.
But Ben's right. The fact that he can't play 46 games, he can't play 90 minutes, he can't do a lot of what we need him to do. It does hinder us.
Yeah, we need to keep clean sheets. The defense needs sorting out. I think Ole wants to change formation entirely because when he first arrived, he tried to change it to a 4-3-3, which is his way of playing. And his team was built. We were talking about how teams are built to play a certain way. A new manager comes in with different ideas, and he tries to implement that into a team built to play differently. And he found out quickly that playing 4-3-3 or 3-4-3 didn't work. It's built for a 3-5-2. So he's gone back to 3-5-2 and it's improved a little bit. But I think he's going to play about in January and we're going to downsize a bit and he wants to go back to
ironically 3-4-3. He went 3-4-3 against Notts County and
he went 4-3-3.
Handed to him.
Yeah, and but I think he wants to go back to his little way. But we'll see how January goes.
He definitely wants winners. We know that.
Yeah, he wants wingers. We need a keeper desperately need a keeper. And we need to keep clean sheets, which we don't do. We let at least one in every game, and even games that we do quite well in, we've chucked one in. And again, we can see another dreadful goal, which is the first goal where it was a cracking header, bullet header into the back of the net, where he could have just basically just flicked onto the far post for a corner by Delaney. But in saying that, defensively, it has been a little bit more coherent, but it's not enough, not yet. So we are where we are. Big January ahead because of big fixtures. There's some 6-pointers, juicy games coming up.
We're going to come on to January soon because I gave you all a little question to have a think about for January. But Ronan, for you, the game yesterday, not really much to be said, is there? Same old.
Trials on mute. Yeah, we can move on if you want. Don't have to really go on. It happened. It was proper bad. When you're watching football and you think, we watched us against Salford on Boxing Day. I said it to you before about we were bad against you on New Year's Day, and you didn't really have to do much, and it was a pretty bad game, to be honest. But yesterday just sort of sat the soul out of you a bit. It was one of them when you're watching it, and it was a bit like watching one of your pets be put down, to be honest. It was quite sad, with no sort of real hope behind it. I don't know. I'm trying to. I was so negative about it up until the end of the year, and then we played yourselves, and I thought, right, I'll try and just change my tune a bit and go, right, we've got 2 games here, yourselves and Harrogate. I think if we got 4 points, 3 points, I'd be reasonably happy. And we'd have just got to the end of the year, and it'd have been like we'd have stayed up, and we could just sort of take stock and whatever. Mm-hmm. But now I'm genuinely terrified that we could be dragged into something. That I get the point made earlier in regards to the 3-year plan and maybe hanging on with someone, but Christ, it was bad. The substitutions were bad. Aqua and Dallas were up front and looking like the two best. I say this loosely because everyone was rubbish. 2 of the better players on the pitch, and then he keeps Conor Mahoney on, who's clearly is one of his favourites because one of his players, and he was awful. He was shocking. And he has been shocking for weeks. He's not had a good game in a Barra shirt. So it's you're listening to his post match, and you're like, I don't say this lightly, and I don't say this as a cliche. I genuinely mean it when I say I don't feel like we're watching the same game of football. And I know that's a proper cliche.
Yeah, I know that.
But I actually genuinely mean that. It was weird last night because he did his press, and he did his press late. He let Niall Canavan go first, who you'll obviously very know a hell of a lot about, more than me. And Canavan spoke really well and was like, yeah, obviously not as quite bluntly as I'm about to put it, but yeah, we were awful and we need to take some accountability, stand up, be counted for and all that good stuff. And it was almost like, oh Christ, is he going to be sacked because you don't really send your captain out after that? And he did his press, and he said, yeah, we were awful, and I don't mind that so much. It's when he's blinkered and he goes on about, we got beat by Salford 3-0 on Boxing Day, and he said, oh yeah, but we had the most touches in the opposition box. Well, what's that got with the price of cheese?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, who cares? I know we slightly disagree between myself and yourself on terms of like who's at fault, but I think the manager's really got some accountability here, because it's really not good. We look shit, like really bad, and my problem is, you look at who's out there now. If you did sack him, my opinion was you should have sacked. If you were going to sack him, you should have sacked him after that Salford Boxing Day and gone, right, we've lost 3-0. We're going to want it January. You give yourself a week and you can, get ready. But you look at the options and you're just a bit like, what can we afford and what can we go for? And yes, it was awful. If you're a Harrogate fan, you'd be buzzing. You'd be absolutely buzzing, and there's not many of them, because that's a huge result for them. That really drags us back into it. Drags us back into it.
Like it's the first time that they've beaten. Like, your games are normally like 1-0, 0-0. It's the first time that there's been kind of any kind of margin, and scored more. Oh, this sounds awful. I found some good stats, but they scored more goals against you yesterday than they have in the last 6 games combined, which says a lot, I think, about kind of where you are at the moment. It's not like they're a bogey team or anything like that. It's
it's like, well, we had our best on paper. Maybe minus Dean Campbell, we had our best team on the pitch yesterday, and we were miles off it. It wasn't even close. That's where I was worried, because after, and I was putting in our chat when we were playing Bradford, we only have one centre half on the pitch now. Well, now we have no centre halves on the pitch, and we were having a bit of a joke and whatever. And I was like, if it goes into it tomorrow and we lose, like with only one centre half and whatever, then like you give me a bit of benefit of the doubt, don't you? But we had almost everyone on that pitch that we could have picked from. Dom Telford wasn't even in the squad.
So, just you mentioned the Bradford game there, and I'll say it now. While I might as well say it now. We spoke about it before the game, about how different a game it had been if Andy Cook had stayed on the pitch. Obviously, Cook went off 5 minutes in. Club haven't said anything yet, but I've just had it confirmed, and I'm fucking gutted that Andy Cook's out for the season. That's huge for us, and that changes my answer to the question that I asked you all earlier today. It massively changes my answer based on what we need to do. So at this point, I'm guessing the club are going to announce it at some stage, but Cook's not going to be back for this season, or not till the back end anyway. Sometimes they come back and they manage to get there for the last game of the season, but that's fucking devastating.
What did he go off with?
His knee. It'll be an ACL if it's.
Isn't he not?
Most, I'm guessing if it's out for season, probably. He went down about 3 minutes in, didn't he, Ron? And then he got back up and.
Yeah, it was quite innocuous, really.
ACLs though, you can't, like, that happens, doesn't it? You feel something go, but you can play on like it doesn't feel awful, and then it's obviously incredibly unstable. Unstable.
We've had Andy Cook in a Barrow shirt, and the main thing with Andy Cook is if he's injured, like he will play through anything. Like he could see he was devastated, and you have a bit of fun with him when he comes to Oak Street. But you were a bit gutted because he's a good footballer, fantastic footballer, and it wasn't nice to see, to be honest.
And you don't want anyone at this, regardless at any level of football. Football's a very short career, and the players at this level aren't earning life-changing amounts of money. I know people see sometimes players earning 2-3 grand a week and think, God, that's great, but they retire at 36, 37 years old. They've got to make that money last. So you divide that wage by 3. Divide it by 3, and that's realistically what they're on, because they've got to make it last 3 times.
And
the time.
Bless him, he's of an age where recovery will be slower. He's not, an 18-year-old academy lad who's going to have the up and bounce back. It's really shit timing for the club, but for him kind of personally as well.
Yeah,
it's more for Andy Cook. Sorry.
Go on, sorry. No, go on, Karen.
it's big for Andy Cook's career that just sort of touching on it a bit differently, because he might never come back and be the same player now. I mean, he doesn't really rely on his pace, and this is sort of a different question and whatnot. But does he now become potentially more of an impact player, or a and he won't want to be that at all. No. Don't get me wrong, but it's massive for his career because he might never come back and be Andy Cook again. So
I think it's early days. Yeah. It's very early days. It's one of them where we're not going to know. If he's got to have an op, then they're not going to know the extent of it until they get in there. So I suppose it's a waiting game. But yeah, I mean, look, he's 34 now.
I was just looking on that then. How old he was?
Yeah, it's a bad injury to get at this. At any stage, it's a horrific injury. But at 34 years old, it's not a good injury. But look, if there's anyone that and sort of knowing Andy the way that there's anyone who's determined enough to kind of kick and fight his way through it and come back and prove everyone wrong, it probably is him. So I wouldn't be shocked. And he's on 80 odd goals for Bradford, and he's desperate to get to that 100.
You get that he will be the type of player who spends his time in the gym working on his upper body. Like, they come back different players. In terms of kind of style, and bless him, he gets so much stick for being kind of top heavy. He'll be a tank when he comes back after 9 months in the gym. He'll probably just a different Andy Cook.
But this is what annoys me, right? And this is when we talk about like the long ball and the hoof ball up to Cook. This is what I don't like about it at this level. Again, there's no reason to play it. We've got a squad that can play football on the floor. We saw yesterday against Gillingham. Like, I won't go too much into the Gillingham game, but Gillingham were the Gillingham that played you, Ben. They were not good, and we were dominant from minute one. We were so in control of it. We should have been 2 or 3 up before we went 1 up. But playing long ball up to a player who's got to jump and control it and then land on League 2 pitches, because they're not the best, especially in winter. They cut up, the bumpy. And like, I've been on a lot of these pitches myself. Like, they look great. Like Doncaster. I know Doncaster rave about their pitch, Billy. I'm saying this to you now, right? I've been on your pitch and it ain't as flat as it looks. It's not the carpet that people make out it is. But like, injuries like this are going to happen when you play that style of football, because they're going to land awkwardly. All it takes is to land on one of those little bumps and that's it. It rolls. And a career can be done. So that's another thing that kind of pisses me off about why we play that style of football. But yeah, I mean, look, it is what it is. Fifey has dropped off. I know you guys have noticed, but anyone who's listening will have noticed Fifey's not well. So credit to him for actually turning up and battling through as best he could tonight. Someone said, even though Cook is big, he isn't a long ball target man. He's a poacher in the box. He is. He's also the man. Again, come back to Gillingham. He's the lad who will pick the ball out on the wing, cut inside, take 2 or 3 players on, and play it into the bottom corner. Like, he's that sort of player. But when you look at him, you wouldn't think he was. But he's I'm gutted. So we'll see what happens, and obviously wish him the best for going forward. But yeah, that's changed my question to the next part. My answer to the next part. So the next part, I don't have a segment cut, by the way.
I've got a question for you on Bradford. So what has changed this season for Bradford at home? So you've always done better away. And this season, only Walsall have scored more points at home than you have. Losing just 1 in your last 14 home games. Is there any reason for that?
No. I genuinely, it's the same as like when I look at our away form, I can't work out why, because there's no difference in styles. We don't play any different. It just seems to be more effective at home. And you look at the teams that we've played. We've played some teams at home that are kind of in the shit. They're kind of down there. We played Carlisle. We knew Harry Lewis was going to be in goal when we played Carlisle. We knew that was a big occasion for him, but we also knew that he was rock bottom on confidence. Yeah. So we did that. We played Swindon. We knew they were rock bottom. We played Bromley. For some of those Bromley players, they've never played in a stadium like Valley Parade. They've never played in front of that many fans. Right. It's a completely new experience, and it either goes one or 2 ways. And this is what I said about Swindon when Holloway was talking about the squad and stuff like that, and the size of the ground. It was, you go one or two ways, and if you're not ready to kind of play at that level, then what are you doing here? So we have played them, and then you then look, and we've played Port Vale. We beat Port Vale. We they weren't very good, but again, they weren't in good form. I feel like we've I don't want to say we've got lucky because we haven't, but we've played teams that have been out of form. Do you know what? I'll tell you what the change is. It's quite different. Fuck off, right? Lancaster man can get fucked. Do you know what? Right? Only difference is our mascot is different. Yeah, he don't do no. What happened there? No, the thing that's changed, and it's nothing that we've done as such. We were always the team that if a team was out of form or on a horrific run, if we looked at form and saw a team had lost 6 on the bounce and they came to Valley Parade, it was a banker that they were going to get 3 points. And that's just not happened. That's the change. That's the only difference, really. We've not dropped those points. So maybe we're a little bit more resilient. But we still concede goals. Even we went 1-0 up against Grimsby yesterday. You still knew that Grimsby were going to get a goal back, so we knew we had to get a second and get a third. So, yeah. Well, look, the question. I'll answer the question. I'll read the question first. So the question was for all of you: one realistic player for your club to sign this January, and why? Hannah Salford, for you.
Oh, bugger off! Why do I right? So. I'm going for the thing about Salford is generally kind of good coverage and not like I mentioned, 25 goal striker before, but it's a bit late in the season and, they're not kind of right for the taking necessarily. There's no one that you think, well, they're out on loan somewhere else and Salford might be able to pick them up. But one of the kind of areas for not improvement, but a bit of a gap was left by Dan Chesters, who obviously only came in the summer and then has been out. So I think that right wing back type position in terms of who passed, I honestly think the best opportunity would be for someone that you've never heard of that comes from someone like Crystal Palace or Everton on loan and goes to game time. And I think Salford in the past they had Louis Barry, they've had good relationships with clubs, but they don't because they've not necessarily had the infrastructure and the training facilities. They're not that kind of go-to club for the Premier League, particularly. With the success that they're seeing, that might factor into it a little bit. So that's the position. Don't have a name, but that's kind of where I'd be looking.
I wouldn't have expected you to have a name, if I'm honest with you. I just wanted to throw you under the bus and see what you did. Mine. So before the Cook injury was Critchlow, was Romany Critchlow.
Yeah.
He played for us, obviously, but in that season where we should have gone up. He played for us then. We should have gone up. He went back to Peterborough. Sorry, went back to Huddersfield, signed for Peterborough. Didn't work out there. He's been on loan at Dagenham and he's been recalled. So he's available. And I think we should be shoring up our defence because we're going to lose a couple of defenders in January, or at least in the summer. We've got a few out on loan. So I would bring Critchlow back now at this point because he's a great defender for this level. However, and Lancaster Bantam's hit the nail here, and Ben, don't have a fit. It's not Harry Smith. It's Michael Cheek. For me, if we can't get Bromley to accept a bid, if we can't outspend Bromley at this point, then what the fuck are we doing? Like, we should be able to go to Bromley, put the money in front of them that they cannot refuse, and sign a Michael Cheek. We should be able to. We need an out and out goal scorer now at this point because we haven't got one. We've lost. I mean, well, do you know what the worrying part is? I'll give you this. So before last week, when we played, I think it's before the Barrow game. Yeah, it's before the Barrow game. Andy Cook was on 14 goals for the season. And I'll ask you all, how many do you think the next highest goal scorer in our team had?
5.
5 from Hannah. Any advance on 5?
8.
6.
8.
I wrote
6.
7.
2.
Wow.
And that was Poynton at the time, and now we're on. J Ben has got 3 now, and Richie Smallwood's got 3. No, sorry, I'm reading assists. Alex Patterson's got 3 because he got his yesterday, but then we've got Neil Byrne on 2, Clark Adwar on 1, Lewis on 2, Richard on 2, Shepherd on 2, Patterson on 3, Sarcevic on 1, Smallwood on 2. Andy Cook's obviously up there. Callan Kavanagh on 1. Poynton's now got 3. Sanderson on 2. Jamie Walker on 1. Like we don't have goal scorers.
No. Sars would be good for a few more if he's kind of maybe moving into that gap where Andy Cook charges through the midfield.
But we need a proven out and out goal scorer.
He's not that, but he is useful. Lancaster Bantam mentioned Michael Mellon as well. He's a funny one in that he was brilliant for Morecambe last season and then got recalled back to Burnley. He came to us. I think the only time I've seen him play was against Bradford in that awful BDSM
when we battered you.
Yeah, that one. Just I think League 2's probably his level. But he, like I say, he was great at Morecambe.
I don't think he's what we need though. I think he's only scored goals in that one season for Morecambe. And he scored goals. Obviously, he was at 22 games, 13 goals. It's not to sniff at. I guess that's a very, very good return. But if you kind of compare, you look at that, you look at Jake Young, he had that with Swindon, and it hasn't happened for him yet. And we don't have the time to take the chance with someone who's not proven. This is why the whole Josh Stones thing would have been great if Cook was fit.
Yeah.
Because he'd have come in, he'd have learned from Andy Cook, he'd have been like his understudy, he'd have pushed on, and that would have been great. But spending 300,000, and that's the rumour, spending 350,000 on a player in the National League that's not proven at EFL level was ridiculous for us to consider. So I'm glad we didn't do it. But we do not need a Michael Mellon. We don't need. I know that Cheek isn't proven consistently at an EFL level, but he's doing it right now. So we need somebody who's either got a record of doing it every season or somebody who is proving that they can do it against the teams that we're going to come up against week in, week out. And that's, aside from that, there's not many others, is there?
Are you ruling out a return for Jake Young there on loan?
Jake Young wouldn't come to us.
No.
He would not.
Burton. Don't pillage Burton, all of you, all of the League 2 teams.
Do you know what?
Hey, Billy Bowden. I want Billy Bowden.
We could go for Orsi.
Yeah.
Orsi at Burton. Burton will be looking to offload this January. They'll be looking to ship out and replace. So Orsi at Burton is another one that we could go with. I mean, he hasn't scored a lot of goals for them this season, but he's been scoring, hasn't he? Yeah.
I mean, we played them and there was literally nothing good to say about them. But, he was one of the better ones.
Yeah. I mean, he's on 6 goals for them this season. Considering the rock bottom of the league, that's not a terrible return. So look at what he did last season. So he's consistent. He can score goals. We could go get Stansfield from Birmingham, but
do that. Oh, we've played them twice now, so I don't care.
Yeah, we'll go get Louis Barry. He's knocking about in Villa's reserves. Ben, what about you? Who's your one?
Well, me one. I've thought about this long and hard today, and I racked my brain. It's obviously going to be a goalkeeper. Before I go back, Bromley Critchlow, we do sell Will Wright to MK Dons. He's exactly the player that I want to replace him. But anyway, the player that I've chosen as a goalkeeper, I've made it realistic. So I've gone Reading's backup keeper, who's 35, which is David Button, who's played a lot of games in the Championship. He's experienced. We're desperate for a keeper. We could get him on 6 months. The logistic is good. He'll want to come because it's regular football for him. He's played 6, 7, 8 games for Reading this season, so he has played a few games in League One. Yeah, he won't cost a lot, being his age, and you want to play. David Button.
It's a really obscure one, but fair play. Fair play.
I told you, when you said, I'm going to look into this, and we need a keeper, and it's realistic. He's only up the road, and he's experienced, and he's decent.
That's actually really good. I mean,
it's very sensible as well.
It is.
You know, like the daft transfer rumours when, you know, all it takes is one tiny bit of Lampard, you know, had them in the youth team when they were at Chelsea, therefore they'll go to Coventry. That's all it takes. Tiny.
Yeah. No, it's a very sensible one, Ben. I mean, we'll go back to that first game of the season against Chesterfield. That's when your goalkeeping problems started. If you remember that goal.
It's been throughout. It's been constant. We've got two very young number 2 goalkeepers who are desperate for an experienced keeper to learn off. We've got 2 of them. We haven't got an experienced keeper, and there's so many goals you've conceded which have been down. And also, it causes defensive rickets because they've not got confidence in the keeper. As a keeper behind them, they're going to make silly decisions. They're going to make decisions because they're worrying about what the keeper's doing, rather than their own jobs. So they overcompensate, or, you know, they do stupid things. So I think a good goalkeeper, an experienced goalkeeper who can patrol the back line, he knows what he's doing. You know, he doesn't need to be absolutely amazing. He just needs to be solid and not fuck up. That's all I want. And David Button, been there, done that. 35,
do the basics, right?
Yeah, I just want to keep just basics. He'll do the basics. He'll be delighted to come because at the end of his career, he's 35 years old. He wants to play regular football. I'm sure Reading will happy to offload him. It's only up the road. He doesn't have to move house, so he's got young kids or anything. He can just drive up from Reading. Honestly, get on the blower, sort it out, get Dave Button. 6-month deal. There you go. And if we get relegated, he can move on. And if we stay up, then he can earn himself an extra deal. Who knows?
Get it sorted. Bailey, for you, it's a two-sided question. So who is your one, and who do you think is, because they've spoke about like a marquee signing, haven't they? They've spoken about like a big signing for Donny. Who do you think that is?
I don't know. There's been plenty of rumours, and I'm trying not to get my hopes up too much about a couple of them. One being Matty Craig. Went to Barnsley and he's not played hardly anywhere near as what anyone thought he would. There's a couple others. Aaron Connolly were mentioned. Is at Sunderland, and he put an Instagram post up with him and Billy Sharp at Hull. I just can't see it. Again, I just don't think it's anywhere near realistic.
No, I don't think it's gonna.
But so I don't know who it will be. Another one was Malik Wilkes, but he's now staying at Rotherham. The one player I've gone for is a midfielder, and I didn't really know a specific name because January it's always hard as well to get players in January, especially permanents. So I've gone with a young lad on loan from Man U called, I think he's Daniel Gore. He played against us in Bristol Street Motors or Virtual Trophy, whatever you want to call it, and it looked decent, and he's been mentioned to go to a few clubs this month, so possibly him. But as to the statement signing, as they said, I don't know who it'll be or what position. I don't think it's that Rob Street who obviously we've just signed. There are a lot of, I don't know if you read the replies to the tweet about it, but they're all saying, well, this doesn't look like a statement signing we need. He's hardly scored any goals. But the one player McCann did say who was the statement signing, he said he's too good for League Two. He should be playing a lot higher. But we're very close to getting him. So I don't know who it'll be. But
has there been anything on kind of time frame or because we've been told not to expect anything until after the FA Cup?
No, one thing he has said in it after yesterday's game, he said he's just waiting for there's like a domino effect for there's whoever will get him. So it's just waiting for them pieces to put in place. But yeah, I'd expect it before the whole game next week. But I don't know.
It's a chain, isn't it? It's that chain thing that we hear every window. There's a chain, and when the first one goes, that's when everyone else sort of moves along.
No doubt you'll see someone go somewhere tomorrow or Tuesday, and that's it. People will make their mind up as to who it is.
Is there anyone that you think you're at risk of losing?
Not this window, I don't think. There's a couple. There's probably 2 or 3 that I think if we don't go up, I think we'll lose. I think Molineux is possibly one. With obviously he signed a new deal, and he's not been great last couple of months. But there will be teams circulating him. Oluwu is another one who I think he's been our player at season this season, and he's out of contract in summer. And then the other one is Jay McGrath, who we all love. He's still very young and he still makes a few mistakes in there, but they're probably the 3 who I could see going in summer if we don't go up. But this month I don't think so, no.
Yeah, well, that's good. And, in terms of if you don't need to lose people as well, in terms of squad size and...
I think like Liam was saying as well earlier with McCann saying after last season about the title hopes, I think the players have all bought into that. So I think it's a case of they want to do it this season, and then after, if it comes to end of the season, we've not gone up and they want to go to pastures new, then fair enough.
Yeah, it makes sense. Ronan, same question to you.
I sort of flicked around a few names, but if I was going to sort of nail it down on one position, I think we need another centre half. So I was looking at maybe like Kieran Gordon from Rochdale, kept quite a lot of clean sheets this year. Manchester based, right-sided centre half is exactly what we need. Absolutely that. We need a combative midfielder, but trying to find the name that's within our budget that isn't going to be some mad loan is hard, to be honest. The one that you'd absolutely love, if you could get your hands anywhere near him, would be like a Freddie Draper up front as well. If you could get him, but he's way above our station. A bit of the gamble could be Sedwin Scott, Notts County, not really getting the game time there. Has scored goals at the league below. We could probably get a loan deal in there. So I wouldn't be massively against that either. But Kieran Gordon would probably be my shout. But I was struggling. But we do need a midfielder who can tackle, foul, get yellow cards.
You say above our level, but I think everyone thought that when you signed Cole Stockton.
Yeah,
I agree. But we're not the attractive proposition we were this time. Well, we're not as attractive as proposition. But I think the myth with Barrow is that we don't have a lot of money. I think that's a big myth. We have money to spend when it's needed.
Yeah,
and I think we always surprise people a little bit with that. E.g. Dom Telford, who we did get a fantastic deal, and we've spoke about that enough. But we're still paying him a few quid, and don't let that go down. I think if we were going to look, if we could offload Telford through no fault of his own, he just hasn't fit in this year, and free up that money, which won't happen, may I add. And we could free up that money, then we could really do some potentially.
There'll be a couple of outgoings, I think, for you guys this next week.
I agree. Completely agree.
It would not be transfer season if Chal didn't do this. Now, it's not the first part where he wants to see competition for Molineux, Chal, because I agree, Molineux, every player needs some competition. It's the last line. Use the Scandinavian market. I'm not even going to try and pronounce that person's name, but I want to know why you're looking at players that play for Reykjavik. What's led you down that wormhole, and what does your YouTube search history look like?
I love him.
Not on the second part, but Kyle McAllister was a name I thought of, but for the summer. Because I remember we played Forest Green last season at their place, and he looked very good. And I'm surprised he's still there. And I think he's like 7 goals, 4 assists this season at National League as well. But he's someone for summer who possibly I won't be against, but I think it's unrealistic.
They're second, aren't they, at the minute as well?
Yeah, it's tough. It's always tough in January to bring, because obviously teams don't want to lose players either, and it's especially if they're under a decent contract, it's hard.
Oh, Charles not done.
I was going to say though, in fairness to Charles, we've signed a player from the other Reykjavik team, which is generally shortened to KR, because I wouldn't even stand a chance at pronouncing the they might be the New Ireland. It might be like Crawley. They meant to go to Ireland and they've gone to Iceland.
Still on the bench for Inter Napoli.
So what we know about him, Charlie, is that he's good at sitting on a bench so far. We know that's the only thing that we know for definite. I genuinely, it baffles me. Charles' search history must be the dullest thing. Like people must people break down his door and we're going to search your computer history, and they just go, "Fuck, are you looking at? where's all the weird stuff?"
I mean, you can't be an Italian national with a name like Ed McJanet.
No, definitely not. Definitely not. He's not a local. Lancaster Banter's asking, deadline for recalls, isn't it usually this week? We spoke about this yesterday. It's very, very
a myth.
Yeah. So there's no deadline unless a club agrees. So we agreed last year either the 5th or 6th of January for Jake Young with Swindon. But generally, it can be done at any point in January. If it's a season-long loan, it can be just obviously it can be left, and obviously say that
there's always a break clause, isn't there? But yeah, because like Mo Farr last season, I suggested I think 13th of January he got recalled.
Yeah,
and I think the deadline for that was like 14th or 15th. So
yeah. And that happens, and it's just down to how much the clubs value the players, and if they think this 6 months out is going to give them a chance to kick on and come back, then they'll put a deadline in to give themselves a kick up the arse. And sometimes it's to force a sale. We did it with Doyle, with you guys a few years ago, Ben, didn't we? We recalled him. Well, apparently with the intention of playing him, but we weren't keeping him. We knew that Swindon needed to sign him, so we forced them into buying him.
Well, it was a deadline day. It was like 300 grand in the end. We got about 2 games for him before the COVID struck, and then that was it. He was off. he fucked off.
It was a really expensive one for you. Still paying for the repercussions of it. Are still ringing around now, aren't they?
Oh, among others. I think Lee Power did. So among others.
Last question before we wrap up, and because this is kind of, we've not done really a deep dive into all the games, because that's something that we'll do when we get into it properly. We just wanted to really introduce people, let people kind of get a little bit of a feel as to who people are. Based on the summer, based on what you expected in the summer, Hannah, you as well for Salford, based on what Salford fans and where people were kind of placing your clubs in the summer in predictions, rate your current season out of 10 in relation to that. So if you were predicted to be champions by everyone and you're currently sat 12th, that's not a good season. So where do you sort of rate your seasons? Ben, I'm going to come at you first because it'll be funny.
Well, everyone thought we'd do shit, and we're doing shit.
Did you think you'd do this shit?
I didn't. I thought I generally thought we went for a different angle to start the season. We went for a lot more experience with players who had done better with their careers than League 2 and got promoted at this level. So I generally was quietly confident that we would at least be mid-table and do all right for ourselves. So personally, we're way below where I thought we'd be. But everyone else was saying, Swindon were about 17th, 18th because the owner's a nutter.
So for you, out of 10, what you're at then? Where are you for the season out of 10?
2.5, because we're not in relegation. That's not, and we were predicted to do badly. If we were predicted to be top league, it would be like 0. But because we were predicted to do badly, I'm going 2.5 because we're 4 points off the drop at the moment at this time.
And they've got a game in hand, haven't they?
They've got a game in hand, but that game in hand will be played in March when the table looks completely different. So it's just where we are right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Bailey, what for you? What, based on where you thought you would be? So expectation versus reality out of 10, I suppose it is, isn't it?
Results and performance-wise, I think we're well off what I expected. Consistently anyway. We've probably only had a handful of games where we've performed really well. But I predicted us 3rd, I think, before the season, and before yesterday we were 2nd. So obviously now we're 6th or 7th, but yeah, we're not far off it. I do think we'll improve from where we are now. I think there will be a run of games where we go and win like 3, 4, maybe 5 games.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just
or like 13 or whatever it was.
I don't think we'll get anywhere near that level, but I do think there's enough quality in the squad to go on and run a 3 or 4 games and get ourselves away from chasing pack a bit. So out of 10, I'd probably go about a 6 at minutes.
Same as Chal, 6 out of 10 false possessions in some weeks. We've got results that were below the preseason hype. January is crucial. I agree, Chal. Ronan, what about for you? Yours is, I'm guessing, slipping every week, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a difficult question. I'd put a 4 out of 10. I expected us to finish somewhere around the middle of the pack. And we're sort of in that like middle ground now where we're either going to go on and probably be in the middle of the pack, or we're going to slip into something a bit worse. So I think a 4 out of 10 is fair. I think there's a lot of. I think if you want to go into it a little bit more, I think it's more individual player performances that have been disappointing, that have sort of contributed to us, like Dean Campbell's, Kane Spencer's, and the such, rather than maybe the actual collective.
Okay,
Hannah, what about you as a lifelong Salford fan?
As a lifelong Salford fan, I think 7, only because. So Salford on the 16th of November were 16th in the league. So this is a kind of a relatively short kind of 6 week spurt. And if you look at the teams that and bearing in mind, you're not conceded a goal in 6 games, they're all wins. But Barrow, Morecambe, Harrogate, Accrington, they're not teams that are otherwise setting the league alight. And so I think the kind of the very quick ascension is kind of more representative of how tight it is, and a good run against kind of below par teams.
Yeah.
Great if it continues. But that's my kind of reason for caution.
Your reason for caution as a Salford fan, I agree. I think that's definitely something. Yeah, I think you should be cautious of.
I'm not getting very excited about autos and 2 points against County next year.
Ooh.
Yeah, well, my screen cut out there, so I didn't actually hear what you said. I heard not getting excited about, and then it went quiet. So that's a secret for me to listen back to on Spotify.
It's not that exciting.
Is it not? Right. Well, guys, we've done an hour and a half. Said we wanted to do around that because it's a long when it's on Spotify. So this has been sort of the first one. It's not going to always be a Sunday because we're going to bring the 606s back, but we're going to be finding a day that kind of works for people. And we'll sort of roll from there. So we've got a week off now as well. We said we've got a week off. It's not. There's a lot of League 2 games this weekend.
There's some very exciting League 2 FA Cup clashes next weekend.
There's some very exciting League 2 clashes.
Yeah,
oh, yes.
Some big games.
Swindon have got Crew.
Yeah, we've got a tough one. We've got Crew, but then we've got some massive games after that. Obviously, we've got the Barrow game. Huge game for us. Barrow will want to beat us to pull away from the trouble. We want to drag Barrow in the shit. You've got Notts County, Newport, who are just above us. And then we've got Tranmere as well. Again, another team. They've only scored 17 goals. Now, we've future chat about relegations. They're my tip for the team that no one's talked about that are really in trouble. 17 goals all season. If you've got a team that's scoring goals, they will get you out of trouble occasionally. If you're not scoring goals, you start letting them in, you've not got the confidence to get back into the games. You're in big trouble.
They're the worst.
Yeah, we're in the show now.
They're the worst team you've seen this season.
Yeah, Tranmere were really, really poor.
Tranmere bad. We played them the other week and they were pretty shy because we looked all right.
They beat us, so I'm not contributing to this conversation.
I'm trying to think who the worst. Do you know what? It probably was Swindon.
It might well be. When we're bad, we're terrible.
Yeah,
well, Barrow, got to say us. They didn't even have a goalkeeper. We couldn't beat them.
Yeah,
Kennedy.
I said
we shouldn't have lost.
When we played Swindon. It was we went 1-0 up, and then we just didn't. We did nothing. We didn't even. It was like we didn't even try, and you just offered nothing. Which is that's what when I was quite shocked when I saw a different side and a different style when I went and watched you play Grimsby. So yeah,
when it's all right, it's all right, and when it's all right, hopefully more often than not that will keep us up. But when we're shit, we're horrible.
Well, guys, thank you very much for tuning in, everyone. This has been episode 1 of the new season, which started halfway through the season because that makes sense. But we'll be back. We will catch you another time. Follow us. Do whatever you need to do. You can call us whatever you want in the comments, but just give us a decent review on whatever platform you're listening on. Give us a thumbs up on YouTube. Give us a like on Spotify or 5 stars. Call us whatever you want in the comments. We don't care. But just give us that because it does help. Because someone left us a really bad one on Apple. And I'm pretty confident I know who it is. Yeah. Thief. See you later, guys.
The lower legal look, the place it's all